Okay guys, so we're going to be looking at page 14 of this investigation. We learned a lot with the investigation about quadratic. We talked about the standard form of a quadratic function is ax squared plus bx plus c, where a and b or c are all real numbers and a does not equal 0, and then that creates a parabola. We talked about the idea that a helps us identify the direction the parabola goes. Okay, A goes with the direction. B goes to, am I moving it to the left or am I moving to the right? And then we talked about C. C deals with the Y-intercept. Okay. Now when I look at a quadratic, there is a special line, which we talked about previously, called the Axis of Symmetry. It's the line of reflection that I can reflect points on one side of the parabola on top of the other side. And there is an equation to help us determine what that axis of symmetry is. It's x equals negative b over 2a. So that's going to be important for you guys to remember, and we're going to just kind of practice that. But overall, guys, we want to identify 4 different things in this case. We want to identify the direction, the axis of symmetry, the vertex, and also the y-intercept of this graph. So for this first equation, we want to identify what the direction is. Now it's going to be helpful for us to identify what a, b, and c are to help us start the process. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c is standard form. So in this case, a is negative 1, b is negative 12, and c is negative 31. Okay. Our direction is based off a. In this case, because a is negative, I know that my parabola is going to open down every time. Okay? If a is negative, the direction of the parabola is going to be going downward. Another thing that's easy for us to identify is what the y-intercept is. The y-intercept is going to be your c value. In this case, it's going to be 0, negative 31. Just keep this in mind, guys. With y-intercept, if I plug 0 in for x, that's the x value. And then the y value is going to be what's left over. So we've done vertex, and we've done direction. Now we just got to focus on the axis of symmetry. Okay? All right, so axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. So in this situation, we identified our b to be negative 12. So we're going to say x equals negative of negative 12 over 2 times a, 2 times negative 1. All right, so when I simplify this, I'm going to get x equals 12 over negative 2. So your axis of symmetry is x equals negative 6. Okay? The axis of symmetry is x equals negative 6. Now, once we know the axis of symmetry, now we can find out what the vertex is. And I'm sorry that I didn't give you guys enough room to do this. The axis of symmetry is the x value of your vertex. So if I know my equation, which I do, then I can find the y value of the vertex by plugging negative 6 into the equation. So when we do the vertex, we know y equals negative. Our x value is negative 6 minus 12 times negative 6 and minus 31. And then we're just going to simplify this, okay? So negative 6 squared is 36, so I got negative of 36. Negative 12 and negative 6 is going to become a positive 72 minus 31. So I'm going to take negative 36, add 72, minus 31, and I get 5. Y equals 5. So my vertex is going to turn out to be negative 6, positive 5. Okay? So direction, we've said that because A is negative, the parabola is going to be opening downward. The y-intercept is what your C value is, so it's negative 31. We found our axis of symmetry by taking negative B over 2A. We got the axis of symmetry to be negative 6. Our vertex is when we plug the x value into the equation to find the vertex. Okay? All right. Eventually, I'm going to ask you guys to try to do this, maybe hopefully on a separate sheet of paper. I ran out of room, so let's just look at number 11, and then I'll have you guys try 10 and 12 for the next day we meet. Okay. All right. So like we did before, we want to identify what our A, B, C values are. A is, if there's no number in front of it, we would say it's 1. B is negative 14. And C is 48. Okay. All right. So we know what A, B, and C are. That means we know a couple things. We know our direction. Okay. So A is positive, so that means my parabola opens up. Okay, so we know that. All right, so then the next thing is we could find the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is C. The y-intercept is C. So in this case, C is 48. So my order pair is 0, 48 for my y-intercept. Okay. All right, so now we can try to figure out what the axis of symmetry is. So it's x equals negative b over 2a. So x equals negative of negative 14 over 2 times 1. We got negative 14 from the b value. We got 1 from the a value. So I get negative of negative 14 is 14 over 2. So you guys got x to be 7. X equals 7 is your axis of symmetry. And then we could find the vertex by plugging 7 into our original equation, which is y equals x squared minus 14x plus 48. So I got y equals 7 squared minus 14 times 7 plus 48. 49 minus 14 times 7 is 98 plus 48. I think that's 1. Let's just see. So we got 49 minus 98 plus 48 is negative 1. So you got y to be negative 1. Okay. Your vertex turns out to be 7, negative 1. Sorry I didn't give you guys a lot of room, but I am going to ask you guys to try 10 and 12 for me. Okay? And then we could talk about those on Tuesday or the next day that we meet.